Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. And what's coincidental is I just recently posted about Orgone, and the leading researcher for many years now has just died, which is very interesting. I mean, there's, which is Dr. James DeMeo, I believe, or Meo. And apparently he was working with a Tom Fernandino, who was his associate. And, of course, DeMeo is known for his very famous book, the Orgone Accumulator Handbook, which is pretty much the definitive book on building orgone devices, etc. And it's been around for years. It was out of print for a while. What's interesting is, about 2 or 3 months ago, I ordered a bunch of material that he had written off of Amazon. All very dated information, by the way. And I will show you some of this in a minute. I also checked out his website. And he's selling a lot of stuff to make accumulators with. The usual steel wool, the usual animal wool, which, again, there's a controversy of whether that's how you make these. Apparently, that's not how Wilhelm Reich did it. Now, he's been running the Orgone Biophysical Research Lab out of Oregon for as long as I can remember. It must be 20 or 30 years. And has written a couple of very dated stuff, which, as I said, I'll show you in a few minutes. The Heretic's Notebook, which talks about this. He has an article in it with a whole bunch of other people. There was another major researcher into particularly cloud busting, a James, I think he was an Australian. What was his name now? James Trevor. And he's passed away as well. But this brings a big question again. And, we have to, people have to put up or shut up when it comes to technologies. Now, Orgone, which has been perpetrated in modern times by Satanists, karlwelz, who put together Orgone-based radionic machines, which basically was just traditional crappy radionic machines that they poured a bunch of goop into that, as I stated in my previously posted video, is highly toxic and spins a completely counterclockwise energy. And there's nothing good that spins counterclockwise. What spins counterclockwise? Things like rat poison, any poison you can think of, cleaning items. So this is, of course, and here we are. Here is DeMeo right here, and this is his major assistant, who apparently they work together. And he states in his little announcement here, and apparently he's been dead for a while. They seem to be a very paranoid organization, not wanting to disclose things. But one of the problems is, and of course I understand that, being a little safe, but I'm not sure of his death. He was afraid of people coming in and stealing all of his research, which certainly has produced absolutely nothing. So here we go again with people living in a fantasy world and not producing anything of value. And of course, this is what we have consistently in these areas. And they really are self-important, because I don't know if they're afraid to release anything. Of course, we have to understand that the Wilhelm Reich, who was quite a character himself, sexually obsessed, coming from the Freudian school of basically, you're talking about the German Arab school of understanding sexuality, which has perverted all the Western world. This is where he came from. He was I don't know where he was born, Reich. Was it Austria or Czechoslovakia or someplace? But, and worked in that same reality. And of course, his orgone studies, or orgasm studies, because it just shows you how obsessed, which is very typical of these German Arabs, is the fact that they're sexually obsessed. And being the problem with this entire culture, they're known for their homosexuality. Of course, there are more homosexuals in the German Arab countries, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, than any other place on the planet. And it's well known. There's a book called The Pink Swastika, which showed the gay movement, which started the Third Reich. So all of this, and of course, few people understand that because you've been fluffed by stupidity out there. But the bottom line is that, Reich is very interesting, and he has a lot of interesting research. But does he? Certainly, they produce nothing. Nobody's going out there and using cloudbusters to do anything that I'm aware of. While he's doing his own personal research, and I'm not sure what's out there or not. Everything you get from him is dated. We have Pulse of the Planet from spring of 1989, where he talks about it. Cloud busting, a new approach to drought. Now, I don't know if he thinks he's going to be victimized again, but of course, times have changed since the arrest of Reich. And of course, Reich decided to treat one of the things you can't do in life, and that is the big C. And then you can't go around as a non-medical doctor, and even as a medical doctor, depending on what you are. But, states like New York, you can do anything as a medical doctor. You can use radionics, you could use orgone, you could use anything you want, and this is perfectly legal. And there's a few states like this. Of course, you then, as a doctor, become a parasite to the industry, and the other doctors kind of go after you. But isn't that life? But of course, you can cop out and poison people, dockies, because after all, you went into medicine because of money. Optimistic. The hypocritical oath, is that what they take? Yeah, that's pretty much what they take. Considering that all doctors are involved with organized crime and are murdering people every day. But it's shocking, isn't it? Grow up, people. So the whole idea is that we have to understand what's going on in the perversion of Western thought, which is a bigger picture as well. But let's not get too diverse here. But, the picture is big. What's the bigger picture? The bigger picture here is we get a lot of claims. Now, and we'll go down. It's just another orgone researcher and practitioner that's dead. The list is as long as a football field. So there must be something very dead. Reich himself died of a heart attack. People think he was killed. I don't know. Certainly could be. Certainly he was in prison and getting out. They certainly could have continued to harass him. Did they have to kill him in prison? Well, I have no idea what that's all about. So we don't know if that's the case or not. Certainly it's not above the medical mafia that's out there and, of course, their supporters, which is all of regular society. So I'm not sure how old he was, but the story is that he certainly wasn't that old. If you're a person who claims to be able to cure the big C and that you've got this amazing energy, and it comes from your crotch, well, you should be able to do something about that in terms of what is going on there. You should prove that. The big, well-known Satanist, karlwelz, who put all that together, died at a young age as well. In his middle 70s, his wife died at 71. So here we go again with a whole bunch of nonsense. So it goes down, that says in the fall of 2021 here, DeMeo discovered something wasn't right. And in February of 22, a scan showed that he had developed colon cancer. The condition was more serious and more advanced than he realized and got out of control. He died on April, which, of course, this is February, April, just a few weeks after being diagnosed. Boy, this guy's a good researcher. He died on April. I was with him at the end and over the last 2 weeks of his life, and will blah, 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 blah. So the whole idea is that here's a guy who supposedly, Orgone Accumulators, and the reason why Wilhelm Reich was thrown in prison was because he was not a medical doctor and he was healing people, which is against the law. Medicine is controlled and illegal unless you have been certified that you are one of the criminals of the group to do medical type work. So if you do any of that stuff, you're going to get in problems, especially if you make claims. And there are a lot of people making claims today, which I am very disturbed of personally, that they're allowed to get away with this. People like Spooky2 and Peter Renetti, who says that he can cure anybody while he's a sick scumbucket. So the whole idea is we have all this stuff, and these people should be contacted and, as far as I'm concerned, fined and prosecuted. Nobody should be making claims, and I don't think that the medical people should be making claims either, because they don't know what's going on. Your regular allopathics, as they like to. Yeah. The bottom line, what works for you individually is just that. So some people will take an innate medicine that never hurts anybody, and it will kill them. People die from taking some antibiotics. People have reactions to peanuts, to certain supplements. So you really can never say. And of course, the graveyards of this country are filled with people that their doctors promised them that this would work, and of course, it doesn't. So apparently this new person has taken over the lab and apparently is going to close down the Oregon branch and move it to his home state, which is back east. He wants to keep the guy's books and prints and everything else, which hasn't been done, from what I know. Recently, I believe but the Orgone Accumulator Handbook was out of print for a long time when he was alive. It seems like in whatever was happening in the last 5 to 10 years, that DeMeo was not keeping up with much of anything. And we have nothing here. We got stuff that's printed 10 or 20 years ago. I have to wonder what's going on there to begin with. Certainly, with the outbreak of fanaticism into Orgone, perpetrated by Satanists, and people that like Don Croft. Interesting, another dead Orgonist. Who was so messed up by his crap orgone and breathing in fumes from making his poison stuff that he apparently was too confused on how to claims he died in an accident, some sort of goofy flying accident. They continue to Don Croft's wife continues to make the garbage stuff he has that does absolutely nothing, risking people's lives, claiming that, of course, they can't make claims of their little zappers, which of how many people got cured. I don't believe any of this. It's propaganda. They are bad people who worked with the Satanists. And when it was brought up to them, they have nothing to say about it, like all of them have nothing to say about it. You know, none of them will ever contact me and get the facts of life, like all of these cowards in the Psychotronic Association, the Radionic Association, etc. These people are all part of the problem. So he states here that after he died, the number one concern was the safety and security of the lab and the archives. So I'm not sure what was there or not, but of course, outstanding as his work and research was, it is no secret he had enemies, and as do many workers in Oregon. Wilhelm Strauss' science, biological and atmospheric and cosmic life energy. So the point is that I'm not sure who's going after this stuff or not. Everybody can make their own stuff. There's nothing but Orgone on every street corner. And he certainly didn't come out and say what a fraud karlwelz was building these crappy machines. He sat there and did nothing. So I don't know why we should support him or his do-nothing effort. And we're going to get his do-nothing buddy to get in there to assist as well. People like him should have been coming out and talking about the fraud this is, that this isn't regular Orgone. One of the problems is it appears that he doesn't know what regular Orgone was, because they use a very toxic materials, what Wilhelm Reich used before, kind of similar to asbestos is what he was using. This almost molten powder stuff, which makes sense because what it did is condense the energy of the earth that way. And I'm not 100% sure that's right, and I don't know what kind of results he was getting from his steel wool and animal wool products. So blah, blah, blah. He wants to save all this stuff, and of course it ends with begging for money. So, I mean, you know, he should be praised for his work. I do like the Orgone Accumulator Handbook. He stated the fact there's an entire chapter in that book stating how dangerous Orgone is and how you can't really use it in modern times because it's an accumulator. Does anybody know what accumulator is? It takes from what's around you and brings it to you, meaning it goes into the atmosphere. And we know how wonderfully pure the Earth's atmosphere is with all the leaking nuclear power plants, all the crap that's in there in general, the polluted air. Yeah, it's just a wonderful thing. It's just so pure and wonderful. So the whole idea is like people who burn candles, paraffin candles, which put out horrible soot, which is a byproduct of gasoline, and think that that's a spiritual act. So he claims he's going to keep his books and everything in print. Well, I don't know what books he had. He had a bunch of stuff that is 20, 30 years old. No new stuff came out from him. And I'm not sure how he supported himself or anything else. But the lab's going to move to the east and the things are going. Well, I hope he does keep going. We need to research the original energies, the organism, or should we say the coming energies? That is called orgone from the sexually obsessed Wilhelm Reich. So the whole idea is that there is something there. It's interesting. And of course, the cloud buster technology is something that the world desperately needs if it is valid. There certainly is a lot of anecdotal information that says cloud busting is quite interesting and that these even were ways of possibly protecting planet Earth from hostile aliens. And I personally messed with some of these, I used to call them Orgone cannons, to disrupt hostile aliens. But that's another story. But there may be something to this. Reich reported that UFOs around him were disrupted when he was doing his work. We just don't know. When people are persecuted and things become illegal, everything is a whisper. And there's no way of proving it because you can't stomp your feet and say, prove it, because it's illegal to begin with. So all of this is a problem which, of course, should be changed and will never be changed. The medical mafia will never give up their control over all of it. And that means all of us have to pay the price. And, of course, they have so many supporters, particularly those in power and those basically evil people out there, which includes all the churches that stand behind the criminal society structure. All of the people who are in charge, they more than happy support. The police, the firemen, all these other people that never do their job. So, I mean, this is the bigger picture that everybody has to look at. But again, we want to get to what is the core issue here. The core issue is here's another Orgone person who's died and obviously got cancer. At a fairly young age. I mean, he's not really young. I guess he's probably in his 60s or so forth. But in this day and age when people live to be 85 to 95 without a problem, and of course you're using the wonderful Orgone that cured everybody, right? So the whole idea is we run into all these problems that just don't make any sense. And this is just one of many. As I said, the number of people that I have watched and recorded over the last 15 or 20 years that have died who are Orgonists, whether they are black magic practitioners or people like him, is quite a large number of them. So you would think that a person who had this particular condition, the big C, would use one of his big C curing devices to cure himself. So it just shows that maybe Reich was a big con artist when it came to this. We can't trust anybody. Certainly his discoveries are very interesting and should be researched, but are they any good, period? And did he really do anything? We certainly can't believe his own organization of what they claim they did against the big C because they are not an independent source. So you need somebody to come from the outside and to look at all this stuff and go through it and then do research. And you have to do this with everything, whether it's a supplement or anything out there. Certainly the alternative science people are just as corrupt, if not more, than the regular science people. This is what we have to understand. I can't find any credible people at all. And they're more than happy to work for the enslavers and get a little payoff, etc. I mean, you've got people head of the Psychotronic Association that are high school gym teachers. Yeah, yeah, we need more quality like that. Yeah. So the whole idea is that all the crap that goes with that. So here's an organization that has been around for a long time, and I'm assuming he supported himself in other ways. He did sell a lot of products, but I'm not sure if that supported him or not. But basically nothing has come of it. And all the lab research stuff, which is meaningless because it was never. They're worrying about being stolen. Why aren't they publishing it so people can get it? Why is it on the net? You can now publish and it costs you nothing. This was the big problem in the past, is that if you printed a book or something, it was a pretty big investment. You had to print a whole bunch of them, and most likely they wouldn't sell or they would sell very slowly. That's no longer the case with Amazon, Lulu's, and all the other Google-goos, that you can publish a book for free. And it's printed on demand, and everybody gets the information, and you can make a few dollars off of it. So, I mean, this is the reality here. But the big deal is here's a guy who claims that he has this amazing tool, very much linked to curing people of everything. And here again is a researcher, just like this was the same kind of garbage, the feces, diarrhea, mouth spewing individual that Karl Hans Welz was, who died young as well. And his wife died younger. And a lot of their people are very sick, and just as well with these evil people. So the bottom line is that it certainly did nothing to preserve anybody's health. This guy, I'm not sure he made it to 78, which is the average life expectancy in the United States. I doubt if he's that old. I think he's probably in his late 60s, and he barely made it. The same thing with, of course, the main person, which is Karlwelz, whose wife died at 71. He died at like 75 or so. I'm not sure the exact age he died. But certainly, if you've got, and Welz said for many, many years that his orgone would make you super strong. Athletes, you, and bodybuilders, you, and they're doing wonderful. Yeah, it's all lies and frauds. And I'm also amazed how people are so gullible. You know, I know people who apparently have done in this area for years, and they believe every commercial that is thrown at them. Well, they want to believe it because they want to justify what they're doing. That's not a good researcher. So it's near impossible to find any good researchers on either side of the fence. And certainly there's nothing profound or good about alternative scientists as a general rule. Again, very few people have ever contacted me, the authority in the field, the first person to ever have a radionic store, and the first person to do all sorts of things. And of course, these people support all the bums out there. And it's as simple as that. And then people wonder why society is what it is, because they're not supporting the good people whose technology is valid and improving their life with it. And of course, they keep throwing their money at all the crooks and Satanists out there. This is so typical, but this is the world we live in. But we have to understand, again, what is the bigger picture here? And the bigger picture here is here's another orgone researcher, a serious one, who understands and must have been, but of course we have nothing from him and his work. We got, 20-year-old, 30-year-old booklets on stuff, so there's no new information there. As I said, the Orgone Accumulator Handbook was out of print for a long time. I believe it's back in print. Which would at least give you basic information. But that's really bad. We shouldn't be having a book that's 40 years old as our reference material of today. I found that most of the old information is no longer valid. I mean, the concepts are interesting, but you have to take the new technologies. You have to take the new understandings we have of the advanced sciences and collate that with today. We have all sorts of stuff. But no, people want to build a machine from 1920 that is totally worthless and call this some sort of radionic machine. I'm not sure it was even valid back then because none of these people could prove they work. Abrams and Ruth Drown both were tested and failed horribly on 2 occasions. Drown was. We don't know what works or not, but we do know that those are pure psychic tools. Now, orgone is supposed to be some sort of atmospheric energy that is the life force of everything. And supposedly using these very simplistic tools, because you're only talking accumulator, basically is layers of what we'll go by DeMeo's understanding, layers of steel wool, sheep wool, steel wool, sheep wool, and you make these layers. Now, Rife himself claimed to have 100 of these in a box, and you would sit in there, and it would take care of any of your biophysical problems, and including the big C. Now, I don't know how many of this was proven or not, but it's very difficult to get any information. Again, because of the fact of the legalities out there, but you can't trust anybody's research. And alternative people are no better. They have very poor research. Most of them are getting their money from the government, and they can't release things, like what happened with Uri Geller, who showed how powerful he was. But what happened with all of it is the fact that they couldn't release any of this stuff until 20, 30 years later. Most of this has been released recently, and basically the story is, who cares? The people who were interested back then, a lot are dead, they're all old, and the young people coming up don't know anything. They have not been informed properly, and very few people know anything because they're taught by companies that want to sell them stuff. So they don't understand, and there's nobody out there who is a neutral looking for truth except myself. It's gnosis, baby. It's the truth. Everything else is invalid and worthless. So we have to understand that. So here we go. Now, the number one researcher, not only did he get sick, which you think he'd be using his technology to stay well in general and live longer. After all, that was a major thing that he was doing. Certainly, there isn't a bunch of rain in the West Coast in Oregon, Washington, and California. Certainly, I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't doing much of anything. And I don't know whom his enemies were or not, but we all have enemies. I don't think he was anywhere near under the kind of pressure that so many other people are, including myself. I doubt if anything happened to him, which has happened to me by the fascist scumbuckets out there that control everything. So certainly he's been hiding around and apparently was so sick and died so quickly. You hear this because it gets so advanced, and apparently he found it too late. And of course, not necessarily. You think a month of Orgone treatment in one of the miracle boxes by Rife. And what are you supposed to hump in those? I'm not really sure. Huh, Rife? So the whole idea is that didn't do him any good. Nothing happened. So the bottom line is that he did not, he was unable to take care of his biophysical big C problem. Well, this is pretty pathetic. It's pretty sad that the top researcher in this field, and of course, in the end, that's what it's all about. In the end, Orgone was about taking care of the big C and other things. That's what got him in trouble. It wasn't about all the other stuff, rainmaking, everything else, which you think you could prove very easily and document and do everything else in this day and age. Certainly, he did none of this. And neither is his guy. This guy is so paranoid, it's unbelievable in terms of it. But, if you're not going to do anything, and of course he's begging, they're all begging for money. Yeah, they need more money. They've been working on this for 30, 40 years, however much money they have, selling products and books and everything else. And they need more money to, just like the rest of the researchers, to produce a bunch of nothing. So it's the same old story. We're going to pour money. It's going to make you a better firefighter if you have more money. It's going to make you solve our criminal problems if we have more police and they're paid more. All of this is an erroneous thought form. It's very, very bad, and it does absolutely nothing. As long as we think like that, and this has happened all the time, let's pour billions of dollars more into something, it doesn't work. Either something works or it doesn't. You're supposed to fund things that work, not fund things that you want to make work. Let's see some results and then we'll fund that. And we have none of that from any of it. Trillions and trillions have been spent on areas of research into the biophysical problems that man has, and what do we have from it? There's really been no breakthroughs whatsoever. And if there is, it's a pill that costs, $50,000 a capsule. You'll have to take it 20 times a day, and nobody has the money for that. And I'm not sure if any of that is valid either. We don't know really what is valid with anything. So we have to be very careful of supporting anybody. So supporting alternative people that have no facts is just as bad as supporting the conventional people that really have no facts either. We haven't had a serious medical breakthrough since the discovery of antibiotics and penicillin in the late 40s, which revolutionized health and has saved literally billions of people. All the rest of this stuff, and while all this stuff is very curious, and we have to look why there isn't enough research done in the alternative stuff, because we've really hit a wall with everything. And it goes back to the money is not in alternative. At least the power structure is still built in oil and conventional bad medicine that we use that makes a group of people extremely wealthy. Remember, your doctors are the wealthiest people in the country when you analyze who's got all the money. So there may be a few people who are very rich that are the heads of corporations, but the bottom line is doctors are extremely wealthy, and they all are wealthy. Doctors, dentists, etc. These are the people that have huge amounts of money and have giant estates and everything else. They show you what movie stars and goofballs of industry have. But the bottom line is, when it comes down to the average person, doctors are very, very wealthy. And it's sad because they have done nothing to deserve that wealth. And they also are extremely corrupt. So here we go again with the world. That's just the way the world is. But, this just further dramatizes and proves, and I always like to put stuff out. Again, this isn't me. I didn't have anything to do with it. This is not the actual, has anything to do with my organization, nor am I making up stuff. So this is a statement about these two guys. Here is James DeMeo, who had died a few years ago, or a year or so ago. Here's his associate, and he don't look too healthy either. He's got baggy eyes and everything to go with it. So all of that goes. So we have to understand that. So he died in April of 22. Here we're going into 25. Almost 2 years ago, and he's just announced it. This is the kind of ridiculousness because he wanted to hide everything. We need less hiding and more information going out. Whatever he did and everything else, I would never recommend anybody give money to any of these people. They have proven nothing. This guy put his entire life into this, and as far as I'm concerned, has done little or nothing. And he hasn't been publishing anything for 15 or 20 years. Nothing has come out of his organization. Now, I don't know if there's memberships or newsletters. I did go to his site, as he said, and looked at it, the material and stuff, but it didn't look like there's anything new there. I'm not sure if they publish monthly stuff or whatever, but he's not getting the information out there. Has he made any videos? Is he on YouTube? Well, they all think that, they act like they're going to hide somewhere. Well, if we don't do public stuff, they'll leave us. Like they don't know who you are, and this guy has been around. Well, I think it's a little bit ridiculous. And so all of this is quite silly. So we have to, and by the way, Tom, maybe you should learn how to use a comb. So the whole idea is that these are the things that we have to look at, and always the problems out there with this. So once again, we run head on into the fact that Orgone murders. Orgone does not take care of the big C, and the head researcher in the field couldn't do anything about his problems, just like goofballs Terence McKenna, who couldn't talk to his spirits about his brain cancer and died at 50. My leprechauns are much smarter than your leprechauns. Well, they weren't smart enough, Terence, you bozo. And of course, we get into that, and then we trace anybody who's been involved in this entire field, and we find out that they are sick. The military people that were on the team of the Satanists, which they are still today, particularly the Navy, is involved as not achieving anything. It's the same old story. One of this was some sort of officer years ago, and he died using the garbage, of course, and the toxic stuff that he was getting, being delusional, following the most lowest scum on the planet, and it's perfectly fine. So you wonder why things don't work, people? You wonder why all this happened? Because people have supported these idiots with thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, and even allowed them to take over the industry by buying their faulty technology that ultimately kills them, and it's perfectly fine with them. Just another instance. Another Orgone practitioner dead. And the numbers will continue to rise. Until next time.